Sometimes I have really strange thoughts, and always have thoughts that are really like socially inappropriate, for example. And I give you one, was that like sometimes when I had a job, I would be at work and I'd be sitting and having a beer with my boss at lunch, and I had this overwhelming urge for no reason to chuck my pint of beer over my boss, right?
I think that's almost like quite normal. Like,
Laugh at some of your anxious thoughts and realize how ridiculous and irrational they are. Don't take them seriously. Now, this is probably my favorite point in the book. I see smirking over there as well. This is my favorite point in the book. Now, I'm going to make a pretty candid confession here. And actually, this was such a nice thing to read in the book. Sometimes I have really strange thoughts, and always have thoughts that are really like socially inappropriate, for example. And I give you one, was that like sometimes when I had a job, I would be at work and I'd be sitting and having a beer with my boss at lunch, and I had this overwhelming urge for no reason to chuck my pint of beer over my boss, right?
I think that's almost like quite normal.
But I really liked it.
Worst thoughts.
I really liked it, but like, yeah, everybody, like, I won't go into detail about worst thoughts, but essentially the book says this. The book says that all of us have really, like, sometimes quite sickening and devious thoughts. And the thing is, we talked about people not sharing their anxiety with other people. Nobody shares these thoughts. If you're watching this, you've almost certainly had them too, where all of a sudden your brain will like flash an image or a thought in your mind that is utterly disturbing, and you are disturbed and disgusted with yourself for even thinking that, and you don't know where it came from, and you would never admit it to anyone else, but it disturbs you. And we've all had those, and I'm going to admit I've had thoughts in my life where I've literally stopped dead in my tracks and been like, oh my God, like actually repulsed with myself. Now, the book talks about this mercifully and says that this is completely normal, and this is not you that's doing this, and this is almost as if your brain is a separate entity. Your brain will sometimes think the worst thing that could ever happen, okay, and visualize it for you. This is not you consciously choosing to think this, and it doesn't represent you as a human being. And the book talks about how you can basically just nullify them and say, listen, no thanks. And you can decline the thought. You can be like, that's not me. That doesn't represent me. Thanks, but no thanks. Like, fuck off, basically. And it talks about also these thoughts of like anxiety, where you start to give like, where your anxiety creeps in. You can essentially make your anxiety a character. So what you do is you separate yourself from the anxiety and make it ludicrous. And the example in the book was something like a leprechaun or a clown. Like, imagine opening the door and a clown's there, and the clown is your anxiety. And what it's essentially saying is, if you trivialize your anxiety and make it seem like this ridiculous, pathetic thing, you can actually minimize the impact that it has on you. And it's a way of separating yourself from your anxiety. Now, me personally, I always thought that these weird, fucked up thoughts that I had were me, and I was like, God, I'm so weird. Like, why am I such a weird person?
Or like a terrible person.
Like,
for thinking that. Like, I'm gonna give you some examples for myself too after this, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like you're like this unique, weird, terrible.
I was like, nobody thinks like this. Like, the only people that think like this are like mentally ill. And I've always thought that low key, I must have some sort of weird mental illness to think shit like that.
Yeah.
And I would never confess it. And even though I was repulsed by those thoughts, I still felt like they were coming from me. I was like, well, you're the one who had that.
It's coming from your mind. Where else is it coming from, right? Like, it's coming from your mind, and you're just like, wait a second, like, why am I having these thoughts and nobody else is? But the thing is, like, a lot of, what I've come to realize in my life is that, like we read in the book, it's very natural, and a lot of people have these thoughts. And for me, like, I have all kinds of random, very, dark thoughts, that come and go. And in the past, I used to kind of let these thoughts kind of, take over my mind. Like, I almost believed them, like you were saying. Like, I was like, oh shit, like, what the hell is wrong with me? Why am I thinking this kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, like we'll just briefly get into it, because I'm sure there's some people that can, somewhat relate. And
just hold that thought while there's a child here.
Yeah.
We've been interrupted at the best possible time. My stepdaughter did not get the dark thoughts memo, unfortunately.
Yeah, the dark thoughts. So I'll just share. I'll just share like a couple that come to mind now.
Yeah.
You know, as you were talking, a couple came to mind, and there's one that's like it's not. I I almost don't want to say it because it sounds really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like just really passive thoughts of like, let's say for example, like I'm just thinking like, you know, what if I ever commit suicide? You know, like my mind just kind of goes there. It's just like to a place where like I'm just started thinking like, would anybody care? You know, like would it matter? Like how would I even do it? How would life go on? And like these kind of thoughts, they just come and go, like just randomly, like just not like very seriously, but like these days when I have these kind of thoughts, I notice that I'm having the thought, and I'll just like Jack, stop thinking about this nonsense. You know, like I'll laugh it off, like just get this garbage out of here. Or like you know, if you're really pissed off at somebody and you think about like just terrible things. I won't get into like just crazy stuff like that, but like my point being is that I think we all have these very very disturbing, terrible thoughts that might make us feel like we're crazy or weird or just bad humans.
Yeah, just like a horrible freak. Yeah.
You can easily think when you're thinking things like that, like why the hell would I be thinking that? Like I'm not depressed. Why would I ever think about committing suicide? I know logically that I'll never in a million years even consider actually doing that. But it's just like a passive thought that comes to mind. You know, every once in a while, oh, you know, what if I did? You know, it's just like, and then like in the past, I used to kind of like float with that. Like, why am I thinking about that? It's weird. Anyways, but like, and then just other dark thoughts that are just like, a lot of it we'll just keep to ourselves, and nobody will ever talk about them. But the truth is that we all have these kind of thoughts, like whether it be to a certain extent for some people, other extents for others. Those thoughts, you know, they come and go here and there. And, you know, for us as humans, we want to just be like, just realize that those thoughts are they're just random thoughts. Like, they're just full of shit. And just kind of like, whenever you're having like a really bad thought, like, don't take it seriously. Oh my God, why was I thinking that? Just be like, I literally laugh it off now. Like, I almost like seem like a crazy person. Like, I'm home by myself. I'll be watching TV, like some random like thought that I prefer not to have comes into mind. And then, like, I'll think about it. And then once I'm out of that daze of, like, thinking about it, I'll be like, I'll snap out of it. Like, what the hell was I just thinking? Like, just you know, like, obviously that's not going to happen. Just stop it. Like, I force myself to kind of laugh about these kind of things. And more importantly, realize that I'm not crazy. And it's okay to have some thoughts of spilling beer on your boss's face, or even you can have thoughts of, like, knifing him down, like, in an alleyway or something, you know? Like, but you're not actually going to do it. You know that. Your mind sometimes tries to convince you otherwise, but you know you're not going to do anything like that.
It's like and
you know for a fact.
It talks about it in the book, like, you know, it scares the shit out of you because you think that it's you, and you fear that actually what happens the next time I'm holding a knife, might I actually do something? That's the example it gives in the book about,
you're almost scared of yourself.
You're scared of holding a knife.
Do something stupid. But like you know on a deeper level that you won't, but it's still like then you're thinking like, then why do I have that thought?
Yes.
You know?
And then you get anxiety, and you also feel guilt. Guilt and anxiety come. And since I listened to the book, I don't get the guilt or the anxiety, and I kind of laugh it off too. Like the times since I've read the book, the times I have those thoughts, I'm just like, this thought doesn't represent me. I didn't choose to think like this. I would never do this. I've never done anything like this, and I never will. And it's a conscious choice. So the main point there is that you can distance yourself from it, and it doesn't represent you. You're not crazy. You don't need to feel guilty about it, and it's a completely normal human thing that happens. Which is quite a relief. Probably my favourite part of the book, actually, reading that. Because
and this is one of the reasons why The Untethered Soul is my favorite book. It explains the distinction between your thoughts, your mind, and you.
Yeah.
Like, there's a separation there. The thoughts that you have in your mind, you don't necessarily have 100% control of them. Some of them just come drifting in, and then from there, after the thought comes drifting in, then you have control over, like, am I going to listen to this shit? Am I going to entertain this thought? Am I going to think that this is actually me, or am I just going to laugh it off and be like, hey, man, like, sure, I'm not going to, you know,
I mean,
it's just...
the brain.
I'm not going to act on this. Just whatever. Just
the subconscious brain.
Thanks for visiting, but get out of my mind. Thank you.
That's it. The subconscious brain keeps us alive. It controls all the processes, like in emergency situations, like if you're in a car and someone swerves towards you, your subconscious will make you steer away from it. Your subconscious hijacks your conscious thoughts to keep you alive. And so when you look at it like that, you can't control your subconscious, and your subconscious is what creates these thoughts. Now, why you have those thoughts is a mystery. But it's not you, it's your subconscious mind just working on its own. And it is definitely possible to distance yourself. And like I said, it was a huge weight off my shoulders when I read that in the book. Because he even describes a couple of those situations as like, and I kind of thought to myself, I'm not a freak after all, you know?
I just told you about some of my crazy thoughts. Yeah. I guarantee you, everyone that's watching this video has their own little crazy thoughts of like, maybe they're with somebody, they just don't like them. I don't know what it is. They don't like them. And they have thoughts about just beating the shit out of them or whatever it may be. Like, who knows what it is? And like, everyone has these like crazy off the wall thoughts where if you actually turn around, you're like, wait a second, this is like, I'm insane if I'm thinking this.
Yeah.
And the answer is no, you're not insane. You're fine.
Yeah.
You know, you have those thoughts just like everyone else does. And
the next point as well, which also describes this, is a massive. Is closely related to this, and I've got a pretty good example, I think, here. Laugh at some of your anxious thoughts and realize how ridiculous and irrational they are. Don't take them seriously. So we've talked about just then, like when you have those disturbing and depraved thoughts, but it also works for other things. Now, I think I've talked about this with you, Jack, on the podcast about my my hypochondria, and I've got a pretty storied history throughout my life of being a hypochondriac, where I'm very psychosomatic, and I will, you know, I like the first thing that goes wrong with my body, I just assume that I'm going to die, right? Completely honest, I get like a weird feeling somewhere, or like a new problem emerges, or a gland swells up, and I'm like, right, well, that's the beginning of the end, okay? And then I Google, and Google's like, you have cancer and AIDS, like, you know, that's
Google's always gonna.
It's always gonna tell you have cancer.
Crazy, man. Trust me, I told you, like I was also the same way, like the hypochondriac stuff. Throughout my entire life, all my friends would laugh in my face.
Same.
Like, what do you have this week? Oh, is it diabetes this week? Oh, what is it? What is it next week? They would literally laugh at me, like in groups, you know.
Yeah.
They'd be like, dude, you're fine. You're not sick. You don't have every fucking thing you've ever Googled in your life. And I used to Google, wait, but I have these symptoms. This has got to be it. This is me.
Yeah.
And I would peg myself with all these things, like, oh, I have this kind of disease. Then the next month, I'm like, maybe it's not this one. Maybe it's this one. Maybe I have both of them. Maybe it's all three of these combined. It's like this special concoction of diseases that nobody could even, you know, diagnose, because it's just unique inside me. And this is what I have.
Yeah.
And until I realized, like, at a certain point, like, the only way I realized it is after reading all these books and taking things into perspective. And I'm like, wait a second, like, I've self-diagnosed myself with like 100 things, and come to think of it, maybe
never had it.
Like, one of them is true. Maybe I have some arthritis in my knees. Maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't have fucking all these other things like diabetes and fucking, you know, cancer and you know, whatever else it may be. You know, you go down that path and you're going Google, you're like, oh my god, and then Google says, you know, rare case scenarios, it could result in death. And you're like, oh my god, I gotta figure this out. Like, I have this, I gotta, you know. And then you just freak out, and like it's so bad, and like it's hard to live a normal life when you're always worried about shit like that. You know? It's always on the mind.
It can be all encompassing, and I know exactly how that feels. And I've had stretches in my life actually where I would go weeks where I would constantly be worrying about a health concern, and it would literally consume my thoughts. So much so that I had some therapy last year. I had a counsellor online. We used to have video calls like this on Skype, and we went through them. And Elliot Rowe as well. A lot of my sessions with Elliot Rowe were about the same stuff, and they unpicked those things and made me feel a lot better about them. Since I read the book, I'm much better for this as well. So all the therapy that I had helped me with my hypochondria, and then the book really helped too. And I had a perfect test recently, because a couple of weeks ago, was sitting on a house party with my friends, and all of a sudden I just get this like stabbing pain in my side. And it persisted for like 18 hours, couldn't sleep, was in agony with the stabbing pain. And for like 2 days, I managed to resist Googling. And I didn't Google anything. I just thought, I'm going to leave it a couple of days and see how it develops. and I'm not going to panic. And I never really got that scared. Now, if it had happened to me 12 months ago, I'd be like, well, I'm definitely going to die. Like 100%. Surely I'm going to die here. But I managed to not do that. And this time, after 2 days, I was like, right, I've got to check out what it is. I actually, for the first time ever, Jack, I successfully diagnosed myself with a kidney stone.
Wow. Yeah. It was a success.
It was a success. So I Googled it. I went through a whole bunch of things. There was cancer. There was pancreatitis. There was all kinds of horrible things. But I was like, no, I'm pretty sure, actually, it's a kidney stone. A nice, harmless, but painful kidney stone. Went, sorted it out with the doctors, left it a week, had to go to the hospital, and got a scan and stuff. And to be honest, I was never scared. When I was there, I was worried about getting COVID, but I was never scared about what was going on. And then when they did the scan, I never for a second thought they were going to come back and tell me it was anything different and I was going to die or anything like that. So I was super relaxed. And they came and said, yeah, here you go, you got a kidney stone, no problem. I was like, yeah, sweet. So I was really relaxed. They must have thought I was a really laid back individual and not very stressed out. But if it had been 12 months ago, I'd have been scaling the fucking walls with fear.
It's incredible how that works, man. Like I have very similar experiences to that. I have one story that's almost exactly like that. But the funny thing is, like, you don't notice like your progression on like your anxiety like on a day-by-day basis.
Yeah.
But if I compare myself now from like 4 years ago, I'm like, oh shit, I've made lots of strides. Like I can't tell if I made strides since last week or last month. When I compare myself, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'm like, shit, I would have reacted a lot different.
There's no EV
and
rough.
You can finally give yourself credit. You're like, oh shit, you know what? I have made progress here. And you kind of realize it over like longer, time frames. But yeah, I had this situation where I was in an improv class, and this was like, let's say like 6 months ago or something, and we were doing a scene, and I flipped over, and I hurt my back and my neck, like in a way where I was like it was hurting a lot. Any like sudden turn in my neck was like, it was so painful. I couldn't even like turn my neck like even like a quarter of an inch because it was hurting so bad. And it took me like 4 minutes to crawl into bed because I had to like get into bed in a way where like I had to like make sure my neck was like not like gonna hurt. And then I woke up the next morning. I was like, maybe I'll wake up the next morning and be fine. And it still felt so much pain. First thing in the morning, I couldn't move my neck.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I would just be Googling like, what the fuck's going on? Like my neck, like I literally am I paralyzed? Like what's going on?
Yeah.
My neck, I can't move my neck. And then I didn't even care. I didn't even Google it not one time. And like within like a few days, it just gradually just went away. I guess it was like a really bad cramp, or like I pulled it or something, or whatever it may be. But I noticed during that time I did not panic, And then I was in an apartment by myself. Being in an apartment by myself and having an injury, I would usually panic.
Yeah.
In the past, I know myself, I would panic in a big way.
Yeah.
Or even in quarantine, like even in this quarantine situation, like being by myself, locked inside of an apartment, I would, 3-4 years ago, I'd be anxious 24 hours.
Yeah.
I'd be like, shit, like, what the hell? There's nobody around. Like, I can't do anything. Like, this is crazy. But yeah, now I just feel a lot better about, situations like that. It's just, it's more natural and I'm more, let's say, okay with.
Life is so much better like this as well. Like
it's so much better, and it only gets better when it gets better. Like you're the Scott of today, the Scott of a year from now or 2 years from now, when he keeps reading and keeps working on these things. Like it's even better, where you're just kind of like shrugging things off, and like you'll notice that like just things just don't get to you as much as they used to. You're just more relaxed kind of guy, and when you're more relaxed and less anxious, life is just better.
Yeah,
you're just like.
I mean,
because you just feel better on a daily basis. So.